Joss, and she just nailed it today in a spectacular way. I think we're all kind of thrilled.
In the world of guitar mastery, there are innovators who change the game forever. And then there was Jeff Beck, a perfectionist whose tastes in music were as unpredictable as his style on the six strings. Beck wasn't simply another rock guitarist. He was a visionary who blended blues, rock, jazz, and fusion into something unmistakably his own. At the same time, he carried a reputation for studying other bands with almost scientific intensity, dissecting their work as though it held secret codes to unlock new sounds. Welcome to another episode where today we step inside the restless genius of Jeff Beck and explore the six bands that, according to those who knew him, consumed his creative imagination. The London-born legend behind timeless pieces like Beck's Bolero and his stirring interpretation of A Day in the Life never chased trends. He pursued perfection. And in that pursuit, he found himself drawn to some bands that shocked fellow musicians, raised eyebrows among critics, and even sparked debate about what influences were acceptable for a rock guitarist of his stature. Beck once remarked to Guitar Player magazine back in 1975, "Every great guitarist is really just a great listener. The difference between good and great is how deeply you study what came before." And study he did, sometimes so obsessively that it left colleagues confused or even alienated. From late-night arguments at parties to moments in the studio where he'd chase someone else's tone for hours, Beck's fascination with certain groups revealed more than admiration. It raised questions about originality, rivalry, and the fine line between homage and innovation. So, tune up your Stratocaster, because we're about to count down the six bands that Jeff Beck couldn't stop analyzing. The ones that shaped his genius, challenged his pride, and inspired him to push the electric guitar into places no one had ever gone before. The Ventures. Kicking things off at number 6 is a group you might not expect. The Ventures. Known for their surf rock instrumentals soaked in reverb, this American band earned Beck's admiration in the early 1960s precisely because they rejected the formula of vocal-driven rock. Beck's fascination reportedly began when he first heard Walk, Don't Run in 1960 on pirate radio. Music journalist Chris Welch recalled that Beck told his Yardbirds bandmates, "These guys proved you don't need words to tell a story. Every note matters when there's nowhere to hide." Unlike so many British groups who were obsessed with American blues singers, the Ventures relied entirely on guitars to tell their stories. Beck called it pure guitar conversation. At a 1967 studio session, witnesses remembered Beck spending the entire afternoon trying to recreate their signature reverb, saying, "This is what guitars should sound like in wide-open spaces." The Ventures never collaborated with him, but their influence bled into his style, showing Beck that an instrumental could be just as powerful, sometimes even more, than a song with lyrics. 5. Cream. In the number 5 spot is the powerhouse trio, Cream, Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, and Ginger Baker. The dynamic between Beck and Clapton has always fascinated fans. Their careers overlapped, and while there was mutual respect, there was also tension. When Beck replaced Clapton in the Yardbirds in 1966, Cream was just forming, and comparisons were inevitable. Simon Napier Bell, Beck's manager at the time, claimed Beck once dismissed Cream by saying, "Eric's got the volume, but he's missing the finesse. Power without precision is just noise." Harsh words, especially considering both men were pioneering blues rock with distortion and feedback. Beck, however, saw Cream's wall-of-sound approach as brute force, while he prided himself on detail and subtlety. Yet when Cream finally disbanded in 1968, Beck reportedly quipped, Eric finally figured out when to stop. Despite criticism, he admitted later that Cream had taught him an important lesson. Sometimes you need chaos to make calm truly shine. At number 4, we find the Yardbirds themselves, the very band that would one day give Beck his big break. Long before he joined, Beck was already studying them closely. In 1963, while Clapton was still on lead guitar, Beck reportedly watched them play in a London club and told friends afterward, "That's what I want to do, but better." By 1965, fate handed him the chance when Clapton left, and Beck stepped in. Taking over wasn't just an opportunity, it was pressure. He once said stepping into Clapton's shoes felt like inheriting a perfectly tuned race car. You respect what came before, but you want to see how fast it can really go. Early rehearsals revealed Beck playing Clapton's solos note for note before twisting them into new variations. The Yardbirds gave him both a foundation and a challenge. How do you honor what came before while pushing it further into uncharted waters? For Beck, it was a lifelong balancing act between heritage and innovation. 3. King Crimson. Taking the number 3 slot is progressive rock trailblazer King Crimson. Their 1969 debut, In the Court of the Crimson King, blew apart the idea of what rock could sound like. Beck was mesmerized. According to one of his roadies, Beck exclaimed after hearing it, "They took all the safety out of rock music. Every chord change feels like stepping off a cliff." What fascinated him most was their fearless complexity. Robert Fripp's shifting time signatures and mathematical precision left even Beck's own bandmates frustrated when he tried to bring Crimson-inspired ideas into rehearsals. In 1972, Beck even floated the idea of collaborating, but Fripp reportedly declined, telling Beck that their music required a different kind of mathematical thinking. The rejection stung, but it only pushed Beck to study theory more deeply. Crimson represented the impossible mountain, music that forced him to grow, even if he could never fully conquer it. At number 2, unsurprisingly, are the Beatles. By the time Revolver came out in 1966, Beck was fixated not just on their songs, but on their studio wizardry. He reportedly stayed until 3 a.m. at a London listening party, grilling George Martin about technical details. To Beck, the Beatles weren't just writing songs anymore, they were building sonic architecture. He marveled at their ability to make guitars sound like orchestras through layering, backward tapes, and studio trickery. While recording Beck Ola at Abbey Road in 1968, he constantly asked engineers about Beatles techniques. Some musicians perform music, some sculpt it. The really great ones do both, he told his band. For Beck, the Beatles proved that the studio itself could be an instrument, and he never stopped chasing that philosophy. And at number 1, the band that influenced Jeff Beck more than any other, The Shadows. Their 1960 hit, Apache, was the song that lit a fire in teenage Beck. He became fascinated with Hank Marvin's tremolo technique, once described by Marvin himself as something Beck had an almost obsessive respect for. During his Yardbirds years, Beck often slipped Shadows-inspired melodic passages into otherwise bluesy arrangements, proving just how deeply their style had embedded itself into his playing. He once said, "Hank taught me that every note should mean something. Has any other guitarist made instrumentals that your grandmother and your girlfriend could both love equally? Music should communicate, not just demonstrate." The Shadows showed him that a guitar could truly sing, and that belief stayed with him until his final performances. So there you have it, the 6 bands that shaped Jeff Beck's restless genius. From surf rockers to progressive visionaries, from the pop revolution of the Beatles to the pure melodic storytelling of the Shadows, Beck's obsessions reveal that even the greatest guitarists are, at their core, students of music itself. Which of these influences surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more hidden stories from the legends of rock.